first question comes in from Coley. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Shout out to Coley. They say, you mentioned that it took your friend to push you off the deep end by asking you to freestyle while driving, which then became your first viral video. This is true. How did your limiting beliefs shift in that moment? And do you have any tips for how to overcome negative self-talk / limiting beliefs? This is a great question. Thank you so much for asking this, Coley. Yeah, I actually, I talked about this a little bit on the Coast Contra episode. And we were talking about this concept where it's kind of like there's 3 pillars to being successful as a human being. So there's your skills, there's your traits, like your personality traits, and then there's your personal beliefs. And so if all 3 of those things are aligned and like working in your benefit, then there's no limit to how far you can take it in life, right? But if any one of those 3 things, if either your skills, your personality traits, or your personal beliefs are bottlenecked in some way, it's going to hold you back. You know, it doesn't matter how advanced the other 2 pillars are. You're only going to be able to go so far without all 3 being really aligned. And so I think that really applies here. And I'm somebody who can really speak to this from personal experience, because, you know, I'm somebody where for so long, like my skills were very advanced, right? And let me just also explain this a little bit more. Like, what are these 3 things anyway? What are we talking about? So skills, that's pretty obvious. Like just talking about it, and it can apply to anything, but just bringing it into my world and talking about freestyling, you know, the skills are like my ability to freestyle, right? So like my understanding of rhythm, my musicality, and even just getting nitty gritty with it, like the setup punchline, you know, multisyllabic rhyming, ABBA, understanding rhyme schemes, you know, understanding bars and musical phrasing to do a 16-bar verse, understanding song form, and on and on and on. We can get as granular as you want to get, but those are basically the skills involved in me being able to freestyle. So that's what we mean when we say skills. When we say traits, it's talking about, you know, for example, like being ambitious, right? That's a personality trait that you may or may not cultivate in your life. Or, you know, being a hard worker or being a good listener, or, you know, these are sort of traits that you can cultivate in your life. And at any given time, you may or may not have the positive personality traits that would be helpful to you. And to be sure, I still have many that I have not yet acquired that would probably be really helpful if I could acquire them, right? So it's kind of like a lifelong journey. You don't just flip a switch at some point and now you have all these great personality traits that are serving you. It's not that easy, right? It takes a lot of work to develop focus, right? That's another like really valuable trait that you may or may not have. And also, it's not so black and white as you either have it or you don't. It's like you have a certain ability to focus for a certain amount of time, and then beyond that, it becomes really challenging, right? That's one that I can personally relate to a lot. You know, my brain likes to be everywhere at once. I love to free associate and jump from thing to thing. So to really focus like with laser sharp precision for a long time is challenging for me. So that's like a trait that I try to work at and cultivate so that I can have better focus, which sort of serves me on my journey as a human being. So that's what we mean when we say traits. And then when it comes to personal beliefs, that's kind of like, you know, that's the big one that Coley is asking about here, where it's like, you know, one example is like, do you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, right? A fixed mindset says, you know, I am who I am. It is what it is. I'm good at what I'm good at. I'm bad at what I'm bad at. It's always been that way, and it's probably always going to be that way, right? That's a fixed mindset, which is obviously very limiting. A growth mindset, which is what I try to cultivate, right, and talk about often, is the belief that you can get better at anything. All it takes is, you know, focus and effort and experience and time, right? So if you're willing to put that effort in, you can get better at absolutely anything. And obviously you want to be, I hesitate to say realistic about this, and I hesitate to say you want to be realistic because so often people say that at the wrong time. Like you're sharing your dreams with someone and they're like, oh, be realistic. You know, I hate that because I think we all have the potential to do so much more than we realize. But when I say, you know, you can get better at anything that you focus on, I mean, I'm 99.9999% positive that I cannot play in the NBA, right? Especially, I mean, I'm 34. So, but even if I had that dream as a kid, I think it's incredibly unlikely that I would be able to do that. But I 110% believe that if I wanted to get better at basketball, I could start working on it. And in a year's time, if I focused and practiced every day, I would be much better at basketball than I am right now, right? So that's what the growth mindset is all about. And so that's what we're talking about when we say there's these three sort of pillars, right? So it's the skills, the personality traits, and the personal beliefs. If any one of them is bottlenecked, then you can't go where you're trying to go in life.